Just because I'm on the other side. Yeah, across your body. Yeah. That should be the other two. That would be after the disaster.
Good morning. My name is Amy Miller. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a member of the Worship Associates. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Lincoln this morning. Over the last few years, the way that we worship has changed. Sometimes we meet in person, sometimes we've met by Zoom, sometimes we've met on YouTube through the live stream. But in any of those formats, no matter how we are worshiping, we are being together, deepening our connections, trying to find the sources of meaning in our lives. We meet to proclaim who we are, what we're about. We throw open the doors of our congregation, and we proclaim the radical love and welcome that is it is at the heart of the Unitarian Universalist faith. This morning, we have announcements from Melody from our Board of Trustees, who will offer her own welcome and give us a few announcements.
Good morning. I'm Melody Vaquero, member of the Board of Trustees, and I want to offer a special welcome to those of you who are visiting for the first time, either in person or online, checking us out. I have a few announcements to share as our church community does extend beyond Sunday morning worship. The first announcement is to join us next Sunday, same place, same time, November 17th for Trans Day of Remembrance, where we will be joined by the Star City Choir. Yeah, it's very exciting. We will honor the memory of transgender people whose lives were lost in acts of violence. Then on third Thursday, on November 21st, we will be showing the movie Disclosure, an unprecedented look into 100 years of transgender images on screen. I also have an update on the annual pledge drive. So far, we have, for 2025, we've got pledged $360,706, which are pledged, which is great. And this is an increase of over 2024 of $78,152. Yeah. There are 160 pledges submitted, which is 70% of our membership. So there are 228 people we're hoping to hear from this year, and we're at 70%. So we're still chugging along there. If you have any questions, you can talk to anyone on the Board of Trustees, and we're happy to answer the question or find the answer. Thank you.
Parking's tighter today. Oh, okay.
The Unitarian Church of Lincoln aspires to be a loving community, uniting reason with spiritual exploration in order to transform ourselves and our world. We have a big vision here, and we know that creating a loving community begins with welcome. So whether this is your first time here or your 500th time here, whether you came here hopeful or heartbroken, whatever your age, gender, skin color, whomever you love, you are welcome here. As we enter into worship, take a moment to center yourself. Find a comfortable place with your body. Take a few deep breaths. And let us continue into worship with our chalice lighting. The chalice is the symbol of our faith for Unitarian Universalists. Before I light the chalice this morning, our reading is by Reverend Angela Herrera. It is titled, "Don't Leave Your Broken Heart." Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to this altar of life. Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards, and the world needs vision. Bring them with you, and your joy, and your passion. Bring your loving, bring your courage, and your conviction. Bring your need for healing and your power to heal others. There is work to do, and you have all you need to do it right here in this room. Now please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 18. It's in this gray book. It will also be up on the screen. That's hymn number 18, What Wondrous Love.
So I'll call children forward in just a moment, but we're going to do an activity, and I think that having adults around children to do the activity will be helpful. In preparation for our story today, you should have received a pencil and a piece of paper, like a little square one. If you did not receive one, can you indicate to our ushers, and they will come bring you a piece of paper?
Who only has one more pencil left?
We are living in a time with a lot going on in our world and in our community. And one of the activities that I do with our volunteers that work with our children and youth is to have them think of a hope or a wish for our young people during the training that I provide at the start of the year. But I think that we can expand that idea to everyone in this room today. So I'd like for you all to think perhaps of something that you need in this moment for words of encouragement or peace, and what you can offer to another person in this room, someone that you may not know. For you to think of a quote that has motivated you, or a message of inspiration that has helped you when you've had a hard time, and write that on this piece of paper. And if you don't want to write or can't think of something, maybe drawing a little picture is perfectly wonderful as well. So, keep on trucking, or perhaps don't worry about a thing because everything's going to be all right. Or here comes the sun. I am sure you can think of something fantastic and meaningful. And when we're done with our story, I'll instruct you on how to pass along our messages of hope and love to someone else in the congregation. So you can think of it during the story, take a moment, and I'll let you know how to do that in a little bit. And if you are watching on YouTube, if you could please type your message in the live chat. Type it at this time. And Amy, maybe you read those, where's Amy? During joys or in sorrows. That would be great. All right, so now if anyone would like to come forward for this story, or once you're done with your message, you can come forward. You can keep working on your message or your picture up here as well. So come and sit forward here so you can see the pictures. Our story today is called Ella and the Waves by Britta Teckentrup. In the deepest, darkest part of the ocean, far away from anywhere, Ella sailed alone in her small boat. She was surrounded by darkness. The winds had stopped blowing, and the sea stood still. A voice called from beneath the water, "You have to sail through me, Ella." The sea was black, and waves as high as houses rose all around her. "How can I?" answered Ella. "Where will you take me?" "You'll have to find out for yourself," whispered the darkness. Ella's heart was full of worry and fear, and then a white bird cut through the black sky and landed on the mast of the little boat. It carried a small lantern. "Don't be afraid, Ella," said the bird. "I will sail with you. All you have to do is find your courage." The wind whistled and blew into the little sail, and Ella drifted over waves the size of mountains. Up and down into the unknown, Ella fought hard against the current. A group of porpoises surfaced and glided alongside the little boat. "You can't stop the waves, Ella," they said. "But you can learn to ride them, one at a time." And they showed her how. As Ella battled each wave, the voice echoed from deep within the sea. "You will never pass through me. I am huge and dark and never-ending." Ella saw shapes rise from below, and her heart sank, and she gasped when she saw hundreds of jellyfish around her. They lit up the sea from below. "Don't give up, Ella," they called. "We'll light your path." And Ella heard something else, a song so beautiful and full of hope that it brought tears to her eyes. A huge whale surfaced. There are no waves, only the sea. Only you and the sea, Ella, said the whale. The size of the waves depends on the size of your fear. What seems huge now will seem so much smaller once you have sailed through it all. And the whale carried the little boat on her strong back for a while, and as she carried Ella, she told her stories. The sea can be the darkest and scariest of places, but it can also lead you to new shores. I have been swimming the oceans for many years now, and I know you are not traveling alone. Just wait and see. The clouds began to break, and Ella hardly noticed when the whale stopped carrying the boat. The whispering voice was quiet, and Ella was able to ride the waves on her own. She stood up and looked ahead for the first time and saw the sea was full of little boats with little lights, just like hers. Ella laughed as she realized the whale had been right. She was one of many, and they were all headed the same way. The skies cleared, and the boats rocked gently in the soft breeze. The sea was calm, and Ella's heart was filled with joy and pride. They were headed toward a new shore and new possibilities, more beautiful than they ever could have imagined. And Ella wasn't alone anymore. She never was. And that is the end of our story. Although it is not the end of all that I am needing to say to you this Sunday morning. As a reminder that you are not alone, you should have now written or drawn a picture on your note. So if you would, please begin to pass the notes around. There's no order to this, really. Just start moving them to your right, to your left. Start moving your note. All right, does everybody have a note? If you don't have a note, raise it. You should be getting one. You're still floating. Anyone have two? There we go, we've got one coming. We need one. Raise your hand if you need a note. There you go. There you go, should even out. All right. More lively than I thought.
Here, I'll trade you.
So please, hold that close. Carry it with you when times seem dark. The story we heard of Ella and the waves spoke to navigating darkness, facing our deepest fears, and learning to rise above every wave, and it reminded us that strength comes from within, but also from those who stand with us, offering their light when the way feels unclear. My dear friends, I have something important I'm needing to say. For the past 15 years, I have had the privilege of serving alongside all of you as the Director of Religious Education here at the Unitarian Church of Lincoln.
No, Chelsea, no.
And together we have walked through moments of calm and turmoil, held each other up, and helped one another grow in faith, compassion, and community. My roots run deep here, and my heart will always be here. As many of you know, I have accepted a position with the Unitarian Universalist Association, allowing me to extend this important work on a national scale, holding love at the center of all I do and uplifting the values of our faith, our values which are more important now than ever before to commit to uphold on as large of a scale as possible. I am now called to dedicate my efforts entirely to this work with the UUA. and in doing so must carry the news to you today that I need to depart from my current role at the Unitarian Church of Lincoln. And while this next step brings me to new shores, my heart stays tied to all of you. And even as my role here changes, I will always hold deep and enduring dreams for this, my beloved congregation. My love and commitment to this community will remain steadfast, and I will be able to even further your amazing work through resources I can then bring to you through the UUA. They are doing some incredible things for congregations in these times, and I cannot wait to delve more deeply into our faith in this way, however heartbreaking this change may be. And right now, I recognize that for some with everything going on, that hope may feel incredibly hard to grasp in these moments. What we need most is to lean on one another and to be the light that guides each other when darkness encroaches. Transitions are not without challenge, but they bring new potential and fresh possibilities. Despite my own worry and sadness and fear, I am also incredibly excited for what is to come, both personally and for the Unitarian Church of Lincoln. I will remain here in my capacity through December 31st, so there will be plenty of time for us to say the things we would like to say to one another. So please stay tuned to hear more about what will come in the following weeks. Thank you all for the light you bring in my life and for being companions through every wave. I'm forever grateful and will continue to hold this congregation with hope and love and a vision for a brighter future. And with that, I invite the children and youth to join me as we head back to their classroom. Please. And please come find me after service. Thank you.
fun part of our services is this time when we join together to share as a community, to mark the moments of our lives. We share with one another our joys, our sorrows, the events that mark the steps on our journey. All of these sorrows and joys are intertwined in the fabric of our lives as we are woven together as a community. When we share our joys, they're magnified. When we share our sorrows, we are comforted. Even if you are new or feeling new in this community, we welcome you to share with us today. We begin with sorrows. You can speak out loud into this space the name of someone that you are thinking of in sorrow, whether that's your own name or someone you are concerned about. If you're joining us on the YouTube live stream, please type your sorrow into the chat, and I will read it here in this community. What sorrows do folks need to lift up this morning?
My sister Deirdre.
Sister Deirdre,
The boat.
the vote.
Allie, Jose, and Sarah.
Allie,
Jose,
Jose, and Sally.
Sarah.
Sarah.
The family of Matt Joy.
The family of Matt Joy.
Brother Bob.
Brother Bob.
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane. Keanu.
My nephew Rob.
Nephew Rob.
Gloria.
Gloria.
Brandy.
Brandy. In the chat we have Wendy. Sorrows are so heavy, whether those are for yourself or worry about others. But sorrows are not the sole aspect of our human existence. We also have joy. So I invite you to share a name, whether it's your own or someone that you are thinking of in joy today. And if you're joining us on YouTube, I invite you to type the name that you are thinking of today in joy.
Kathy Hyatt is finishing 6 weeks of surgery and rehab. We just got out of Tabitha this morning. She hasn't even been home.
For those of you on the YouTube or that needed a repeated with the microphone, Kathy Hyatt just finished 6 weeks of rehab and joined us straight from Tabitha this morning. She hasn't even gone home.
She had surgery. That makes
She
it
had
sound like a
surgery.
problem.
Oh my gosh. Kathy Hyatt had surgery and then 6 weeks of rehab. Joy.
My brother Danny.
Brother Daniel.
A joy for everyone that led their time, talent, and treasure to the handmade harvest.
Definite joy. For everyone who donated their time, talent, or treasure to our Holiday Harvest Makers Market earlier this weekend.
The man at the Olive Bar from Northern Iraq who spent 5 minutes just talking with me this weekend and teaching me how to really take advantage of an olive bar.
The man from Northern Iraq who works at the Olive Bar and took good time talking not only about the world in general, but also how to really take advantage and understand an olive bar.
Public schools in Nebraska.
Public schools in Nebraska.
My surgery was a success.
A wonderful Elizabethan dinner at Kathy's and Kirk's from the auction.
I think I heard both of those. Wonderful Elizabethan dinner that was offered by Kathy and Kurt at our auction. Surgery was successful.
No more cancer.
No.
Myself, Laura Lee, the cancer
cancer is almost resolved. Her report comes out tomorrow.
Recovering after 2 surgeries 2 weeks ago.
Pam is recovering after 2 surgeries 2 weeks ago.
My daughter made it to Taiwan for a wetland scientist meeting.
Daughter made it to Taiwan for a Women of Science meeting.
Wetlands scientist.
Wetland science. I bet there are a lot of women there. Next week, someone can list Amy's hearing as part of the science.
I was gonna say Amy Miller for welcoming people in this difficult thing.
Anyone who welcomes those to come to this church during difficult times. It is a joy to see some folks that have had other things going on, who have been busy out saving the world, who are here with us or maybe joining us for the first time. You are all joys. We have in the chat a joy, Heidi, and another joy, Dom. We have a belated sorrow, Carol, and Chelsea's father, Douglas Maitland, passed away last week. Chelsea had invited us that if anyone on the live stream wanted to share what they wrote on their virtual card, we have several. Every day is a blessing. Every friend is a treasure. There are so many people who love you. We know that there are some joys and some sorrows that cannot be spoken aloud, but are still deeply felt. So now join me in a moment of silence as we think about those unspoken joys and sorrows that each of us have. Thank you for your presence this morning.
Friends, will you join me now in a time of prayer and meditation? And today's meditation comes from my friend, Reverend Sherry Woodbury. Out of the din of the city, away from the noise of the crowds, we come to rest in this moment, in this place. Set apart from the never-ending to-do lists, embracing the seventh day, a day of rest, we come to the warmth and stillness of this sacred hour. Remember, you have chosen to be here. Something in your life led you to arrive here now. Whatever tasks and cares await you, now for this brief time, simply rest. Allow your soul to be nurtured. Let the waves in your mind and heart gradually subside. As you come home to yourself. Holy and whole. be so, and amen.
Feel free to remain seated as we sing 352, Find a Stillness. Our reading this morning is by the poet Audre Lorde. It's called A Litany for Survival. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways, coming and going in the hours between dawns, looking inward and outward, at once before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures, like bread in our children's mouths, so their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who are imprinted with fear, like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk. By this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. When the sun rises, we're afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we're afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we're afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we're afraid we may never eat again. When we're loved, we're afraid love will vanish. When we're alone, we're afraid love will never return. When we speak, we're afraid our words will not be heard or welcomed. But when we're silent, we are still afraid. So it's better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. Each week, we take up a collection to support the work of this church and our partners in the community. We do this because just as we all grow in our participation from this community, we also all give back through our time, through our talent, and through our treasure. As the next song plays, the ushers will pass the offering plates. You could also give by texting UC Lincoln and the amount to 73256. That information is on the screen. UC Lincoln and the amount to 73256. The offering will now be gratefully received.
My dear Evie just recently had a heart procedure which left her unable to use her right hand. She's recovering nicely now, but in her honor I decided to play these 3 pieces for the left hand alone.
From the poet Alison Luterman, Holding Vigil. My cousin asks if I can describe this moment, the heaviness of it, like sitting outside the operating room while someone you love is in surgery, and you're on those awful plastic chairs, eating flaming Doritos from the vending machine, which is the only thing that seems appealing to you, dinner-wise. Waiting for the moment when the doctor will come out in her scrubs and face mask, which she'll pull down to tell you whether your beloved will live or not. That's how it feels as the hours tick by, and everyone I care about is texting me with the same cold lump of dread in their throat, asking if I'm okay, telling me how scared they are. I suppose in that way this is a moment of unity, the fact that we are all waiting in the same hospital corridor for the same patient who is on life support, and we're asking each other, will he wake up? Will she be herself? And we're taking turns holding vigil as families do, and bringing each other coffee from the cafeteria. And some of us think she's going to make it, while others are already planning what they'll wear to the funeral, which is also what happens at times like these. And I tell my cousin, I don't think I can describe this moment, heavier than plutonium. But on the other hand, in the grand scheme of things, I mean the whole sweep of human history, a soap bubble. Because empires are always rising and falling, and whole civilizations die. They do, they get wiped out. This happens all the time. It's just a shock when it happens to your civilization, your country, when it's someone from your family on the respirator. And I don't ask her how she's sleeping or what she thinks about when she wakes at 3 a.m, because she's got 2 daughters, and that's the thing. It's not just us older people. Forget about us. We've had our day, and we burned right through it. Gasoline, fast food, cheap clothing. But now I'm talking about the babies, and not just the human ones, but also the turtles and owls and white tigers, the redwoods, the ozone layer, the icebergs, for the love of God. Every single blessed being on the face of this earth is holding its breath in this moment. And if you're asking, can I describe that, cousin? Then I've got to say no. No one could describe it. We all just have to live through it, holding each other's hands. Good morning, Lincoln.
Good morning.
It's wonderful to be here with you today. My name is Reverend A.J. Galazin. My pronouns are he and his, and I'm your interim minister. Wherever you are on your spiritual, ethical, or questioning journey, you are welcome here. I'm glad you're here because we need each other. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, a time to honor those who have served above and beyond the call of duty. If there are any veterans here this morning, would you either raise your hand or stand? Thank you. Last weekend, I had a lovely trip home to Wisconsin. I was planning to take care of my leaves before winter. And when I pulled into my little town, I was greeted by a cold rain. I stopped at the post office, and my dear friend Sally, the postmaster, told me it was snowing up at her place. And like a kid approaching the candy store, I had to drive up the hill in search of the first snow of the season. Let me quickly explain the unique geography of my hometown. Lake Superior is a liquid weather machine. Depending on how the wind blows, we can get storms that dump piles of snow. It's called the lake effect. The lake is at about 635 feet of elevation. My home is at 850 feet. The Chequamegon National Forest is at 1,200 feet, which coincidentally is close to the elevation of Lincoln, Nebraska. We all live in a world of microclimates, of boundaries and transition zones. So as I drove up the hill, I saw and felt and tasted the changes instantaneously. It was raining downtown at the lake shore. It was sleeting at my home, and sure enough, it was coming down with December-style snow up in the Pine Barrens. One weather system, the same elemental atmosphere, appears differently to us depending on where we are, on what side of the tracks we live. Now, some boundaries seem ambiguous, like state lines, city limits, zip codes. Some boundaries are natural features, like rivers, mountains, lakes, and oceans. And some boundaries might be termed supernatural, like the veil between the past and the present and the future, the liberal and the conservative, the living and the dead, the known and the unknown. One of my mentors many years ago told me, don't try to impress people by what you know. Keep being impressed by the great unknown. And it's the unknown that is the basis of our free faith. Some people say that Unitarian Universalists have no sacred scriptures. I beg to differ. Not only do we search out, respect, and study the accumulated canon of all the world's great religions, but we believe that revelation itself is not sealed, that there are poets, prophets, and philosophers among us in this present day, capable and willing to spark inspiration and bring a new word of faith into existence. I have no doubt that there are prophets with us now in this very hall, and prophets attending this service on YouTube. There are also sacred scriptures in this hall. At the back of our gray hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition, there is a wellspring of diverse inspirational readings that form a foundation of our free faith. This is not the whole end-all and be-all of our liberal religion, but a starting point for our own explorations into the unknown. I've often thought that every Unitarian Universalist should own a copy of this amazing book, if only to say, see, we have deep thoughts. Audre Lorde's Litany for Survival is one of the sacred scriptures I have discovered in our sacred tradition. As a new Unitarian Universalist some 30 years ago, which really isn't that long ago, queer people, among others, were not welcomed anywhere, least of all in churches. Lord's words screamed to me, for those of us who were imprinted with fear like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, meant living in a world of submission and hiding under the oppressive, heavy hand of Big Brother with no hope for liberation. Now, some people may have enjoyed the privilege of always being in the dominant mainstream of acceptance and appreciation. And some may even be drawn to the idea of making America great again by hating and fighting and denigrating and insulting and laughing at all who challenge their God-given ability to control the world. Some may not understand the fear of living in a world where fear is not an option, but a necessity for survival. And this is the power of sacred scripture. When I first read Lord's Litany, I realized the heroic challenge is for each one of us to face. As individuals, we are weak and disposable. We are easily ignored and pigeonholed and should have no hope of surviving against the oncoming crush of wealth and power. But the mystery of Scripture is that our own interpretations can change and multiply over time. We find new and overlapping meanings from the very same text. 30 years later, I still feel the fear in her words. I still wonder about the hopelessness of the cause. Quote, when we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. When we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. Close quote. But now I understand that nothing survives forever just as it is. Not even hopelessness. Everything transforms. It is better to speak our truths, share our faith, because everything changes and the story is not over just as long as we have breath. We always want to ask, what's next? Sacred scripture echoes to us from many traditions, and one of my favorite passages from the Bible, from the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2, do not be conformed to this age, this world, this time, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind, so that you may discern what is good and acceptable and life-affirming. Do not be conformed. Say that with me. Do not be conformed. Do not be complicit. Do not comply with the overwhelming prejudice and dishonesty and power structures. Instead, transform your mind. Think new thoughts. Affirm differences in opinion. Learn and teach and live justice as you understand it. That's my gospel. Lord cries out, we were never meant to survive. Even that word survival bothers me. Obituaries use the term, he was survived by his beloved friends and family, as though it is a passive thing that just happens. What about this? She was transformed by her beloved friends and family, and they are still being transformed by her. I would rather transform than survive. Now, we are living in troubling times. To some, it may feel like criminals have seized control. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be fearful. It's okay to be distracted. It's okay to be dissociated. It's okay to be forlorn. It's also okay to be welcomed and comforted by a caring and beloved community. It's okay to go beyond survival and work together, because we were never meant just to survive, just to get by, just to stay the course, just to be held hostage. We were meant to live and to learn to love and to grow, to be transformed. We are not alone in this work. Help is on the way. I just received some tips for ministers I want to share with you from the UUA. It's called a checklist for community resilience. Number one, the first and most important thing to do is to be in communication with one another. Check in with people and keep the lines of communication open. Number two, draw on lessons from the pandemic to make sure you have effective structures and a nimble strategy for making decisions together. Number three, pay attention to who is coming in and out of the building whenever you are gathered, and be alert to suspicious packages or phone calls, okay? Number four, remember the importance of de-escalation as you take your own measures to support the safety of your people. Number five, make sure you're connected with your staff, other local congregations, and experienced organizers in your neighborhood. And number six, have conversations now about whose leadership and analysis you will look to for guidance. Close quote. Dear friends, our world is in transition. Our country is in transition. Our lives are in transition. And please don't forget, this congregation is also in transition. Just like the microclimates where I live, there are microclimates within this church. Where are you? Where do you reside? There are those at the center of the storm, in the thick of things, board members and committee members, dedicated volunteers, always going above and beyond. I'll call them the downtowners. Then there are those who really care about the church, keep abreast of major issues, participate more than the average person, but remain at a comfortable distance. Let's say they're uptowners. Then there are those who are supportive, but sometimes skeptical, who want to help out and do more, but not sure where exactly they fit in, who occasionally get involved, but maintain a safe distance from the fray. Let's say they're suburbanites. And finally, there are those who may come and go, drift in and out, staying usually on the perimeter, on the outer edges, and I might call them, with a nod to Nebraska, out in the cornfields. Now, there's no judgments here. You are wherever you find yourself. It's all good. People move all the time. You're never stuck in one neighborhood. Everyone is welcome, but the same transitional weather that brings rain or sleet or snow, depending on where you are, whatever elevation you inhabit, affects each of us differently. It might be raining downtown and sunny out in the cornfields. Your assignment today, if you choose to accept it, is to ask yourself seriously, both in this church and in the world, where are you? Where do you reside? Because, as Audre Lorde says, it's better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. Blessed be, may it be so, and amen. Please rise now in body or spirit for our closing song, number 348, Guide My Feet. There is a coffee hour following the service. Thank you, Amy. And everyone is invited to join in. Our closing words are from Reverend Scott Taylor. When the winds on your path begin to swirl, may you find your breath. May you remember and return to that still point inside that is always waiting to welcome you back home. And from that place of empowering peace, may you be an anchor of calm for those who need it as much as you. Go now in peace. Go now in love.
Yeah.
No,